Dear student, myself Rajendra Aaseri, I am Assistant Professor in Computer Science Department at Government Bangalore PG College, Didwana. In the previous lecture, we have discussed various techniques about database design, ER model basics, SQL, and some queries we have practiced. Now in today's lecture, we are focusing some new concept like query processing. Then after query processing, we will focus on transaction management. Then what are the concurrency control content role of the concurrency control manager. Then at last we will focus on database architecture. Various levels are there in a database architecture. Different users are available in a particular database users, right? So starting with query processing. Okay. Now, query processing, before starting and going in detail about the query processing, first thing comes in your mind is that what is query? So query is nothing else, it is basically a request to access a particular data from the database. Clear? If you want to access something from the database, then in order to access that we need to write some statement, and database will process that particular query, that particular request, and it will give the corresponding result. It is called as query processing. So now in every query, while processing the query, it is having some step. So basically three steps are there. First is parsing and translation, second is optimization, and third is evaluation. So step by step we are. So suppose a user is want to make a query. So first step is requesting for the particular data, means just making a query. When a user will make a query, the request will go to the parser and translator, right? So this module, what this module will do, it will just generate a relational algebra expression corresponding to the query. Clear? So we have now what? Relational, or query is converted in the form of relational algebra expression, right? Now second point is that optimizer. Now suppose if we have written some duplicate statement or some duplicacy is there in our query, then the optimizer will further optimize our query. Okay, and for optimizing, it will use some statistics from the database. So optimizer will use some statistics about the data, and it will further give the output into the execution plan. Now after that the query is finally executing. Okay, so first our original query, parser and translator will convert it into relational algebra expression. Optimizer will apply it, then it will just execute the plan, and after executing the plan, now evaluation engine will active. Now what evaluation engine will do, it will access the data from the database, and it will evaluate the query in order to give the corresponding output. So further general output will be result. Okay, so we have made the query and we got the output in the end by the some intermediate step like parser and translator step. Relational algebra expression created, optimizer perform its task, then execution plan, and then evaluation engine will do its work in order to get the final output of the query. Okay, so this is all about the query processing. So again summarizing, in query processing, first parsing and translation will happen. After that optimizer will come into picture for the optimization task, and then finally the query will be evaluated, and after that the actual output of the query will be generated. So this is all about query processing. Now, it is an alternative way for evaluating a query, like equivalent expression we can write down. Means there are some alternative way of evaluating a given query, like equivalent expression we can write down at place of some relational algebra expression. We can use different algorithm for each operation, right? Now there is some cost difference between a good and bad way of evaluating a query can be enormous. Okay, So cost difference might be occur. Now it is need to estimate the cost of operation. It depends on critically on statistical information about relations which the database must maintain, right? Next is we need to estimate statistics for intermediate results to compute cost of the complex expression, right? So it depends critically on statistical information about relations like database must maintain, and it need to estimate statistics for the intermediate results to compute cost of complex expression, right? Next is transaction management. Now, what basically a transaction? So, a transaction is a collection of operation that perform a single logical function in a database application. Okay, if you want to perform some collection of operation, then in collective form it is called as transaction, right? In order to ensure that transaction is made perfectly in fully manner, there are some component like transaction management component which will ensure that the database remains in a consistent or correct state despite system failure. Even if the system is failed or some power failures are occurred or operating system crashes, then still the transaction should be in the consistent state, right? And next is concurrency control manager. It is also very important player in order to control the interaction among the concurrent transactions to ensure the consistency of the database. If you want to ensure the consistency of the transaction, then transaction concurrency control manager plays very important role, right? Now next is database architecture. Database comprises various layers, various forms are there, various modules are there in a particular database architecture. So the architecture of a database system is greatly influenced by the underlying computer system on which the data is running. So the computer platform or computer system on which we are using the data plays very important role in the architecture of the database system. We have some general database architecture like centralized, second is client server, most popular, third one is parallel or we can say multiprocessor, and fourth one is distributed. Now next one is database user. When we access the database or data from the database, various users plays important role at different level. Okay, it depends upon the requirement that what we want from the database, which type of work we want to access from the database. Correspondingly, the corresponding user will be active. So users are differentiated by the way they expect to interact with the system, right? So in which manner the we are expecting from the database to interact with the system, the user is classified accordingly. First one is most popular, that is application programmers. It interact with the system through DML calls, right? Data manipulation language call. In data manipulation, what we are doing, DML basics already we have discussed. In manipulation, we are making some query in order to update or modify the data from the database. So for that, application programs are very useful. Okay, so it interact with the system with help of DML call. Next is sophisticated users. What are these? It form request in a database query language. If we want to make some request with help of a query language, then sophisticated user comes into play. Specialized user, these users will write specialized database applications that do not fit into the traditional data processing framework. So these are the specialized users. Navy users, layman users we can say, these invoke one of the permanent application program that have been written previously. So the application program which can do all the tasks by its own, Navy users will use that particular application program. Example, people accessing database over the web, bank tellers, color seal staff. So these all use are the put under the category Navy user. Application program, the professional programmers, sophisticated, which can make queries, which know the procedure, specialized, which are used for special, we can say database application, and Navy users, which are just asking or requesting for the information, don't know the procedure. Database administrator, this is the main controller of the database. It coordinates all the activity of the database system. The database administrator has a good understanding of the enterprise information, its resources and its needs. Okay. So what are the various duties of the database administrator? It is the duty of the DBA, database administrator, to define the schema. Schema means the basic architecture of the database. Means how many attributes will be there, what will be the a data type of a particular data type of the particular attribute, and what are the various integrity constraint, domain constraint, all are defined with help of the DBA. It is used for storage structure and access method definition. Third, schema and physical organization modification. If you want to modify or if you want to make some updation in the schema or physical level of the database, then only DBA can do this work. Okay. If you want to grant user authority to access the database, means if you want to restrict the permissions, then DBA is having the power for that. Now, specifying integrity constraint, acting as liaison with the users, monitoring the performance and responding to changes in the database. If you want to monitor the performance of the different module of the database, then DBA will perform this activity. Now, overall system architecture I have put in this particular slide. So step by step we will be following. At the top level, if you see, they are the users. So first is Navy user. In this, the agents, web users, tellers are under this Navy category. They are just requesting with help of the application interface, right? Second is application programmer, which can write. Navy users just use, if you see, just use the applications. Application programmers can write the professional program in order to access the data from the database. Third one is the sophisticated user, which are analytical users, which can just use, means they can make the query, okay, and the procedure also known to them. Next is database administrator, is also uses the information with help of the administrative tools, right? So application interface, application programmer, query tools are for which category of the users? Sophisticated. Navy users use application interface. Application programmer can write the application program, specialized program, and database administrator use some DBA tools, right? So first level is clear to all of you. Fourth category of users we have discussed, and different interface they are using in order to connect with the database and in order to access the database. Now see, Navy user, with help of application interface, application program object code will be generated. Similarly, in case of application programmers, with help of application programming interface, compiler and linker, and then object code will be generated. And then further query evaluation engine. Before coming in query evaluation engine, for sophisticated user, they are using query tools, and in query tool they are making use of the DML, data manipulation language query, and then after making the DML query, DML compiler and organizer will arrange the data accordingly, and then further the query will transfer to the query evaluation and engine. Now in database DBA case, with help of DBA tool, DDL interpreter is with DBA, because DDL means data definition language, where we say about the what and how part, means the physical structure of the database. So with help of DBA tools, DML query we can make, DDL query we can make, and then after DML compiler and organizer, query evaluation and engine. So up to query evaluation and engine, every 4 interface will reach up to query evaluation and engine, right? So second step is also clear. After query is evaluated, the query evaluation engine will deal the physical part of the database. So there are various managers are there, storage managers are there in storage category. So first category was the user, second is for the query processor, and third one is for the storage manager. So in storage manager there are four managers: buffer manager dealing with the query evaluation engine, okay, file manager deals with various files of the database, authorization and integrity manager is used for the making the permission restriction. So it is for mainly used by the DBA, database administrator. And then transaction manager to deal with various type of transactions, okay, in order to ensure that all the transactions are perfectly made or not failed, okay. And at the end, this storage there, in this storage there are four ingredient: statistical data is there, data dictionary is there. Data dictionary can be accessed by the authorization and integrity manager as well as for by the query evaluation engine, okay. Indexes are there which can be used by file manager and the buffer manager, and data which can be used by the various managers like buffer manager and file manager. Clear? So this is all about the database architecture, structure of the database, in which different modules are there. First module, first part, upper level, that is for the users. Second is the logical part, that is for the query, and third one is for the physical, that is storage part. In storage part, various managers are there at the upper storage level, and at the bottom storage level actual data storage is there, where statistical data stored, data dictionary, indexes and data is there. So that's all from this particular lecture. In the upcoming database lecture, we will be focusing on some new concept about the database. Thank you.